So, Amy, okay, before I have a lot of questions, but let's go really quick into the comedy thing before I get into, okay. So, what made you decide to do comedy?
I've always been told I was a funny looking person, so I decided that I might be able to take the looks and maybe translate that into actually being funny. And actually, I wasn't a comedian. I never thought of being, well, I thought about being a comedian, but I never pursued it before I started my transition. But it was 2018. I started going to some improv classes and thinking on my feet. And Megan Mack, who is one of the improv coaches here, and she's also the producer of Connections with Evan Dawson on WXXI Radio here.
Yep.
She introduced me to somebody who used to do some classes for comedy that we're not going to name here for reasons.
Right. And we both took the same classes.
Yeah, we both took, and so I took that class, gained some great skills. I mean, nobody can teach you how to be funny because it's still your material and your delivery and the way you do it. But I thought the class was well done from a, writing jokes, structure of jokes, and also, managing the stage and working with
timing, and that's all stuff that you have that I didn't know anything about before that class. I didn't know you had to have a solid 5 minutes. You're going to get a light. What's a light? Yeah. So, I mean, the basics is, what I did need to learn the basics too. So do you think your comedy has helped you with your transition?
Yeah, it's been a great outlet for me because, I've been able to write in a lot of things into my comedy about being transgender. And, and I hopefully that, especially with my tight 5, you're going to walk away from that going, yeah, I really shouldn't ask a trans woman about her penis or her genitals. I should, the questions, like for me, it's like the questions you should ask me is like, are you happier now? Do you feel better now? Just simple stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, and I always say this about my comedy. I think it's funny. I think it can be folksy. But if you're on the fence about transgender people, especially transgender women, I'm going to give you that nudge over the line and I'm going to get you to my side. If you're a transphobe or a TERF, you're not coming over to me regardless. Yeah. But I've had a few times where I've gotten off stage and I've had trans people in the audience who've come up and hugged me. Oh my gosh, it's so nice that you're able to communicate this in a way that's so funny, so real. It made me laugh. It made me cry. And to see the audience react to me, help them too. So it's kind of twofold. It's an educational piece and it's funny, but to get that response from other trans people is really heartwarming. Yeah.
Also, so the comedy,
it normalizes it, right? Like,
it does. Normalizes it. And that's the thing. A lot of people, I've had people my age, I'm 48 years old. And I have some friends of mine that said, we're in our mid 40s. I don't know any trans people, especially people that have transitioned in their 40s, but my kids know trans people. So I've helped, so it also in real life society, just being open and visible with who I am, that normalization process is huge. And if you look at gay marriage, 20, 30 years ago, very few people knew gay, publicly knew gay people. Mm-hmm. And as more and more people got to know gay people, they saw that, no, this isn't a choice. This is really who they are. And that normalization helped to a lot of the rights that we're seeing that have come about in the last 10 years now. I don't want to get into the political stuff, but hopefully we can keep them.
Yeah, no, I know, and I completely agree. But I was use that example about my daughter. It's just so much easier to be gay right now, and that's a great thing. But part of me feels like years ago, like being out in like an all gay bar, there was something about that I feel like the younger generation is missing. You know what my daughter says to me? I said, honey, do you want to come to the pride parade? You know what she said? Why do you all feel the need to gather? And I thought, well, it's good that now they don't get that. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, why are you, but I thought, bitch, some queen marched down that street in 7-inch heels for you many years ago. And you need to, but then I'm like, well, it's a good thing that that it is so much more accepted and they don't have to go to a gay bar to feel included and comfortable. But the old school in me is like, there was something about that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's a lack of appreciation for what they have now.
Yeah, right. So, but also, all right. So, Jen, do you have anything? We should discuss your granny, which is a crazy, story.
Yeah, she's not actually my grandmother. It's my cousin's, was grandfather. And,
okay.
Yeah, he's almost 80 now. So he was like early 70s when he transitioned to a woman. And speaking to like older generations, it's been fun isn't the right word, but kind of fun watching like my parents, my aunt and uncles, and even my other grandmother, like watching this happen. Like Annie, and I literally the other day I was talking to somebody about her and I couldn't even think of what her name was when she was a man. Like it's just, she's Annie now, but watching them all, like gay has never been a big thing in my family. I have so many cousins and like older, like cousins in their 60s that are gay and stuff. Like that wasn't a big deal. This was something that was very, very new though. But just watching them all just sort of roll with it, like, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah, it was 77. Can you imagine 77 years and then finally living your truth?
No, and she said she's known since she was 5 or 6 years old, but what that had to be like the early 1900s, like, and they're small town East Coast Canada, like little fishing village, like that just wasn't done. She's also like 6'6", so
wow.
When she did transition, and her wife is maybe 5 feet tall. They were an adorable couple before. Now they're really, really cute couple. But Jane had to make all Annie's outfits and everything for her because, like, small East Coast town, you're just not finding, like, even if you were a woman that was 6'6", there's no clothes for you, let alone like football player built man that's now a woman. There was just no clothes, so she had to make everything.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
And it was just like, it's sweet watching them. They're no longer living together. Annie's had to go into a home. She's had some medical issues, but yeah, just watching Jane look after her through all this, like, it was really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's crazy. 77.
But she's had the full surgery, like everything. And so when you said you hate people asking you about your penis. So Thanksgiving dinner, she had the surgery, I don't know. So Thanksgiving in Canada is the second weekend on October. So I want to say mid-September or something. She had to go to the States to have the surgery. No doctors in Canada would do it for her. And because of her age, and she's had heart issues and stuff like that. So Thanksgiving dinner, my aunt sits me next to her at the table. And then I've got my other aunt next to me on the other side. Me and my other aunt, we were just trashed. Like, the wine was flowing that night. And I am just asking everything I could think of. Like, but I've always said to her, like, stop me. Like, Cindy knows. I'll just keep talking. Like, I'll just keep asking questions. You got to shut me down. Like, when you've had enough, like, just say, okay, these questions are getting inappropriate. We're not talking about this anymore. But my aunt said to me after, like, so Annie's daughter, she called me a couple days later and she's like, Annie was so happy that, like, you sat and talked to her because, like, she's almost 80. Like, none of the old people friends want to talk about this stuff with her. And this is a huge change in her life. Like, there just isn't a community there for her that she can discuss this sort of stuff with. It's not like she can get up on Facebook group or something like that to do it. So.
And the interesting thing in there was the community aspect of it. And that's, you know, if we look especially at trans issues, One of the big driving things for trans people, and I think why more and more of us are coming out, is we can go online now and find community. And I even make a joke. I do have a joke that I weave in and out of my set about, finding a cross-dressing chat room online. And, and there's a joke that's, hey, what's the difference between a cross-dresser and a trans woman? 3 years is the punch, part of the punchline. But, I started hormones even faster than that. But without communities like that online, trans people were alone in their communities, because best estimates are we're less than 1% of the population. I think in the United States, the estimation is like 0.6%. So anywhere from 0.6 to 1%. So if you're standing alone by yourself in small town, East Coast Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Labrador, a place like that, you're not coming out. You're just not going to do it. And I have a friend that's 38 and she's from Newfoundland, and she, similar story. She's like, she moved to Toronto and eventually came out.
They did too. I'm about 20 minutes north of Toronto, and they moved here actually she had the surgery. They were already living here. So probably a year into her transition, they moved here just because she needed some support.
Well, especially being like that much older. Like my mother can barely navigate the internet at that age. So yet alone, seriously, Amy, let's face it.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
And to go find internet chat groups on top of not even be able to check her mail.
Like,
how do I do my email? Yet alone, how do I find an internet group,
Yep.
That's a whole different generation.
But I remember coming out a couple years ago, I read a story. There was like a 95-year-old World War II veteran from somewhere in Great Britain who started transitioning in her 90s.
Wow.
And said about the same thing. I knew at an early age. I went through the war. I lived my life. I did everything. And she's like, to be on hormones and just to have these few years of my life to feel like me is the best gift I ever gave myself. So
that's amazing.
Yep. It's never too late.
It's never too late. All right, Amy, we need to talk about the religion. Because oh my God, Amy does this joke. All right.
I've only did it once.
Well, all right.
With you.
With me. Okay. I told Jen about the underwear and she is clueless. So Amy, all right, let's start with, when did you become Mormon? At what age? How did this happen? Was it family? What?
No, actually, what happened is I, as I said, I had a first wife from my college years, and we broke up in the late 90s. I moved to Arizona, became friends with some Mormons, and through some investigation, and decided, and I became a flight attendant. This plays into it too. And I got to a point in my life where it was either I was doing some cross-dressing in secret, and I was identifying that as a fetish that needed to be cured. And so, finding the Mormon church, realizing they weren't, Mormons for the most part are really good people. I mean, they lead clean lives. They work hard. They're industrious, all that stuff. And so I made some friends, ended up, getting a Book of Mormon, reading through it, talking with the Mormon missionaries, and I joined the church. I was also I moved from Wisconsin to Arizona. And once I got to Arizona, I was kind of on my own. I mean, I had some family there, but, I didn't have that structure of friends. And, Mormons, when you plug into that community, they're really good at providing you friends and structure within the religion. So, filled a void in my life too. So,
right.
And that's how I met my,
So fix isn't the word, but is that why you joined them? Like you thought they could help you? I don't want to. Fix is an insulting word, but I don't know if better want to.
I would say it was more of a fringe benefit. I thought, because I saw it as this whole thing of the whole lifestyle of, leading a good life, finding, my next wife, which I ended up doing, and having a family, and, and finding that I was also looking for truth, and Mormons, really present this really strong case. At least they did 20 years ago of, hey, we are the one true church on the face of the earth. So, it's just why we here, there's a lot of things from a doctrinal standpoint that it helped me answer. and I believed it. It kind of fit into what I was looking for, but I think, it also helped fix that. I remember getting,